How to turn nothing into something. And here's a little gist of what I've been covering. First, to turn nothing into something, you start with ideas and imagination. Now, it's hard to call ideas and imagination nothing. How tangible are ideas and imagination? It's a bit of a mystery. So you can't really call ideas that can be turned into a hotel, ideas that can be turned into an enterprise, ideas that can be turned into the Salk vaccine, ideas that can be turned into miracle products, ideas. You couldn't really call the idea nothing. It must have some kind of substance. And imagination can't really be nothing. We call it nothing because it isn't like tangible. It isn't like a podium. It isn't that real. But it is almost real. So to turn nothing into something, you start with ideas and imagination. Interesting. Ideas that become so powerful in your mind and your consciousness, they seem real to you even before they become tangible. Imagination that is so strong that you can actually see it. You can actually see it. When I built my first home for my family in Idaho all those years ago, before I started construction on this home, I used to take my friends and associates out to the vacant property and take them on a tour through the house. Is that possible? Is it possible to take someone on a tour through an imaginary house? And the answer is yes. I used to say, this is the 3-car garage. And the guy would look and say, yes, this garage will hold 3 cars. Right? I mean, I could really make it real, make it live. I would take them on a tour through the house. Here's the fireplace. And this fireplace is brick on one side and it's stone on the other side. I could make it real. Here's the rest of the house. Here's the kitchen with this view window. And they would look out the window as I took them on this tour. So imagination, we call it nothing simply because nothing in terms of being tangible, but it is so real, it's almost real. So the first step is to imagine the possibilities. Imagine the possibilities. One of the reasons for seminars and sermons and the lyrics from songs and testimonials of others is to give us an idea of the possibilities. To imagine the possibilities. Now, here's the second step of turning nothing into something. And that is to believe that what you imagine is possible for you. To believe that what you imagine is possible for you. And we become supported by testimonials that say something like, if I can do it, you can do it. And we start believing that. First, we imagine what's possible. Second, we start to believe that what's possible is possible for us. We might also believe because of our own testimonial. Here's what our testimonial might say. If I did it once, what? I could do it again. If it happened for me before, it could very well happen again. So we believe not only the testimonials of others who say, if I can do it, you can do it. If I can change, you can change. If I can start with nothing, you can start with nothing. If I can turn it all around, you can turn it all around. Then we also have the support of our own testimonial. If we've accomplished something before, if we did it once, we can do it again. If we did it last year, we could do it this year. So those two things are very powerful. Now, they're not actual substance, although they're very close. One is to imagine the possibilities. Two is to imagine that what's possible is possible for you. Here's what we call that second step, faith to believe. In fact, one writer said this, faith is substance. An interesting word, that the powerful ability to believe in the possibilities that are possible for you. If you have faith to believe, that faith is substance. Substance meaning a piece of the real. Now, it's not the real, It's not the podium, but it is so powerful that it's so close to being real. So the writer said the faith is a piece of, the substance of, and then he called it evidence, substance and evidence. So it's difficult to call substance and evidence nothing. It is nothing in the sense that it can't be seen except with the inner eye. You can't get a hold of it because it isn't yet tangible. But it is possible to turn nothing, especially ideas and imagination. Now, if you believe that it's possible for you, that substance and evidence becomes so powerful that it now can be turned into reality. So the first step is to imagine what's possible. Second step, to believe that what's possible is possible for you. Now here's the third step, and that is to go to work and make it real. You go to work and make it a podium. You go to work and make it a hotel. You go to work and make it an enterprise. You go to work and make it good health. You go to work and make it an association. You go to work and make it a good marriage. You now go to work and make it a movement. You make it tangible. You make it viable. You breathe life into it. And then you construct it. That is such a powerful ability for all of us as human beings. I just wanted to take the time to drop that in before I move on to so many other subjects. How to turn nothing into something. Now, here's the last part. It takes the disciplined activity to turn nothing into something finally. Faith without the activity serves no useful purpose, but faith invested into the activity creates reality. Once I understood that, I knew then it was possible to build a career. I knew it was possible to build good health. I knew it was possible to build a relationship. I knew I could participate in the constructing of valuable things, valuable enterprises, valuable things that would help and benefit other people. I knew I could be part of it, and I knew I could do it once I understood this formula. So here's the last part now. Appreciate now the disciplines that turns imagination into reality. Because without the disciplines, it doesn't work. The discipline is the last piece of the miracle process. The last piece of the miracle process is to do the work. To do the work of good health. To do the work of a relationship. To do the work of building this hotel. Incredible. So now here's the next one, especially I'm sure for this mature audience that have come to be with me on this weekend. To welcome the disciplines. Now, unless you're mature and unless you really understand, some people said, I wouldn't want to welcome disciplines. They're distasteful. But once you understand that they are the miracle piece of the process, then you welcome the discipline. That's why I'm sure the ancient formula said 6 days of discipline. That's a good word to add. 6 days of disciplined activity creates the miracle of your living, creates the miracle of a fortune, creates the miracle of a city, creates the miracle of a polio vaccine, creates the miracle of music. Ideas and imagination, believing in the possibilities, and then invest the imagination and the faith into the disciplines. Guess what they call artists, writers? They call those achievements disciplines. They call them disciplines. Not random activity, but disciplined activity. Not just rushing at something blindly and flailing your arms and your muscles at it. No, disciplined activity creates harmony, creates music, creates an association, creates an enterprise, creates something tangible, visible, viable, workable. Whether it's a political institution, a religious institution, all things workable in the human experience have come from this such formula. Imagination, faith to believe it's possible, and then go to work and make it happen. Here's the next important law, called the law of faith. We covered it a little bit earlier in a fairly simple form. Faith is the ability to see things that don't yet exist. Faith, though, can turn difficulty into reality, positive reality. And I just want to give you this quick little line up here because it's so important to ponder and then work it. Here's what faith is for. Number one, faith is the ability to see it as it is. Faith doesn't mind seeing it as it is because faith is a miracle worker. Faith does not ignore the negative. Faith uses the negative. Because if there was no negative, there'd be no need for faith. If everything is okay, what would you need faith for? You need faith because it isn't okay. Now, what isn't okay? Who knows? The situation that isn't okay. So here's what faith does. Number one, faith does not ignore the negative because faith now stands as the miracle worker if you let it work. So faith sees it as it is. If it's ugly, it's ugly. If it isn't working, it isn't working. If it's a mess, it's a mess. It doesn't hurt to call a mess a mess. You don't need to fancy it up here. If it's broke, it's broke. If it's miserable, it's miserable. Faith doesn't mind admitting that. Faith doesn't mind seeing that. Here's why. Number one, you can see it as it is. That's the beginning of faith, seeing it as it is. Now, here's the second step of faith. See it better than it is. Couldn't you see beyond the mess? The mess is for today. Couldn't you look into tomorrow? The answer is yes, I guess I could look into tomorrow. Humans have this incredible ability to look into tomorrow, to look into next week. So we not only have the ability to see it as it is, the beginning of faith, but to see it better than it is. Dream the dreams, make the plans, visualize, use your imagination, see it better than it is. Now here's the third step that turns faith into reality. Make it better than it is. Faith now must be invested in the muscle. But if you invest faith now in the action, you can take any situation and make it better than it is. Next. In the beginning of faith, seeing it as it is. Don't see it worse than it is. Don't blow it out of proportion. Some people have this tendency to blow it all out of proportion and say, well, it can't be that bad. If it's this bad, that's how bad it is. You don't need to multiply how bad it is by 10. That's not necessary here. Just as it is, that's the deal, as it is. Don't see it worse than it is. Now here's the next unique key to faith. Don't see it for more than it can become. There's a thin line between faith and folly. Yes, it's possible to see yourself as a millionaire, but not overnight. Somebody says, well, yes, I can see that. Don't see it for more than it can become in a reasonable period of time. Yes, if it dropped out of the sky overnight, but that's not likely. But it's still possible to be a millionaire. It's still possible to be rich and wealthy. So don't see it for more than it can become so that you move into folly instead of faith. Plenty is possible without being foolish in your faith exercise. But now here's two more cautions. Number one, it might be worse than you first see it. You better look underneath. Because sometimes you just look at the surface. You better take a look so that you can really see it as bad as it is. Not to overblow it now, but to make sure you see it as bad as it really is. Now here's the next one. Give yourself a chance to understand that it could be far more in the future than what you can first see. By faith, here's all you can see. Guess what the disciples were always saying? Increase our faith, increase our faith. The miracles that we see here gives us a certain amount of faith, but it looks like we need some more. But you take the first step. Take the first step of what you can see. But give yourself a chance to be able to see it for more than what you first see it. On a foggy night, if all you can see is 100 feet, here's what you do. Walk that first 100 feet, now you can see another 100 feet.
You can't see the 200 feet. But if you can see 100 feet, you walk the first 100 feet, now you can see another 100 feet. So I'm asking you to take the early steps of faith. Whatever you can see it possible to become, start believing that. Have faith for that. And I'm telling you, as that starts to exercise, you'll be able to see it for more and for more and for more. The possibilities will start to increase in your own imagination.
Here's a little subject called How to Turn Nothing into Something. Number one, first, imagine the possibilities. Imagination is the first step of the miracle of possibilities. Reality first starts with imagination. Now, it's hard to call imagination nothing, but it's not something in terms of a podium. It's not tangible. So it's hard to say how to turn nothing into something, because there isn't anything that's nothing. Everything is something, even if it's the imagination, it's something. Einstein once said, there's nothing faster than the speed of light. And Bill Bailey, one of my mentors, current mentors and longtime friend, said, maybe here's something faster than the speed of light, and that's thought. It's possible that thought could be faster than the speed of light. How fast can you think back and think ahead? I guess we can't say the exact same instant, but all we can say is it seems like the exact same instant. You know, if you don't know the truth, you can't say that's true. And if you're not a scientist, it'd be, a little out of order to say, yes, this is true. But here's what it seems like. It's possible to think back and ahead at the same time. I mean, how fast is that? Now, how to turn nothing into something. Number one, imagine the possibilities. Today, if we had a chance to hear everybody's testimonial of how you got where you are, some of you went from nothing to something. Some of you went from pennies to fortune. And if we had a chance to hear everybody's story here today, took the time, guess what those stories would conclude? Those stories would conclude the possibilities are absolutely endless and unlimited. So number one, imagine the possibilities. Read an inspiring book one more time, how someone went from nothing to something. The possibilities, they're unending. Now here's the next step. Imagine that some of the possibilities are possible for you. We call this now faith. Now we start with imagination, now we generate faith. What generates faith? Faith is generated sometimes when the testimonial closes like this. If I can do it, what? You could do it. I started behind. I started under the basement, not in the basement. I started with debt, not surplus. I didn't start with pennies. I had no pennies. Debt's up to here. Finally got it turned around. Now everything's flourishing. That's what we want to hear. And then someone in a testimonial like that says, hey, if I can do it, you can do it. Here's what that does. Reassures our faith. Keep reading, keep listening to the testimonials. One, that excite the imagination as to the possibilities. And number two, helps faith to occur, that what's possible for one is possible for another. Now, here's the third step of faith, or the third step in the miracle process, to deposit your imagination and faith into high activity. Disciplined activity, not just activity, but skillful, disciplined. Take the classes to learn the skills. Get around people that'll teach you the disciplines. And then deposit your imagining the possibilities and believing that it's possible for you. Deposit that now into what we call high activity. Make this note now. Activity finishes the miracle process of turning nothing into something. Activity finishes the miracle process. I'm positive that's why the formula was given of 6 days of working miracles and 1 day of rest to ponder how it's going. How is my miracle working process working? Have I missed some? Devote 6 days to the working of miracles, the 7th day to rest and reflect and go back over, and a bit of study. Yes, spiritual, yes, church, yes, synagogue, yes, family, yes, social, yes, friends. But see if you can't now come up with a plan to increase your activity or refine your activity, sharpen it so that it produces major results.